I've said it before, I'll say it again. You are not too old for technology. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Yes, I will totally admit that this is a pet peeve. The statement, I'm too old for this, whenever people talk about technology. When it comes to computers and technology, no, just no. Your age has very little to do with it. A bunch of other things might, but it's not how many years you happen to have racked up on the planet. I often get questions where someone will include the fact that they consider themselves to be old, usually in some kind of a deprecating manner. Or they'll say something like, make sure you use really, really simple words because I'm old. You are not too old. Your age has nothing to do with it. Here's something that I also see. Some years ago, I went out to the local senior center and spoke to the folks who are running their computer center. They have a computer center, of course, for helping individuals who come to the senior center for a variety of reasons. I was talking to the gentleman about what he was doing and how the classes were held and how the technology was being introduced or how people were being helped specifically. At one point in our conversation, he looked at me and he asked, okay, how old do you think I am? Now, I suck at this. I really do. My age calibrator is way off. I really don't do a good job at this. So I basically said something to the effect of, oh, I don't know, 70 maybe, somewhere in there. 95. Not just 95, but 95 and teaching technology. He specifically at the time was the person who taught the Android phone class, how to get comfortable with your Android mobile phone. I know of octogenarians, nonagenarians, and now the occasional centenarian who are doing great things with technology. They're enjoying it. They're having the time of their life. One of my favorite bloggers just turned 100. You are not too old. They're not letting age get in the way. Why should you? Here's the thing. I keep saying it, and I'll say it over and over again. It has little to do with age. It has everything to do with attitude. If we were to measure by attitude, I know many people younger than most of the folks who are complaining about being too old, who themselves are already too old. Not by the number of years they happen to have been alive, but by the mindset that they carry around with them in their head. They think and they act like people who don't want to or believe they can't understand technology. They're 20, 30, 40 years old. It has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with attitude and mindset. Your willingness to learn and your willingness to grow. Now, I'll absolutely admit that, especially in the United States and many other countries, we have a really bad message towards folks, I'll just say, of a certain age. And I say that because ageism is very, very real. What that means is that if you happen to believe that you are too old, which you are not, society will more than happily reinforce that line of thinking through characterizations, advertisements, being ignored by certain types of media, all that kind of stuff. Don't pay attention to the negative messaging. Pay attention to yourself. Now, I do have to say that there are limitations. Absolutely, people do encounter limitations that prevent their ability to interact with their technology or even their ability to learn it perhaps as quickly as they might want to. Essential tremor is the one that I bring up often simply because it's one of those things that is associated with getting older, but is not necessarily only for people of a certain age. Essential tremor can happen at many different ages for many different reasons. And yes, absolutely, that makes using things like touchscreens and mobile phones and so forth very, very difficult. There are ways around that. There are workarounds for the folks who are young, for the folks who are old, whatever the limitation is you believe you have, think about that limitation, not your age, the limitation. There are workarounds. It can be anything from changing the contrast of your monitor because your eyesight has diminished, to taking things more slowly, just giving yourself more time, being more patient with yourself. Now, the other thing that I run into is that sometimes the issue that makes people feel like they're not getting it actually has nothing to do with them. It has to do with, I'll just say, the industry. I've characterized it as technical gobbledygook. The phrasing, the terminology, the descriptions, the documentation, the lack of documentation, all of this conspires to make technology more difficult for people to understand than it should be. And that's true, again, of any age. I've often joked that one of my jobs is to act as a glorified translator to turn technical gobbledygook into plain English that anybody can understand. Again, anybody, any age. Now, one of the pushbacks, like I said, I've talked about this before. This is not the first time I've spoken about this preconception that people feel that they're too old, and it won't be the last. But one of the pushbacks that I often get is this phrase, just wait until you're older. Well, what cracks me up is that I've gotten that pushback and similar comments about being too old from people who are younger than me. I will turn 65 later this year, and it's frightening sometimes how often I get this I'm too old pushback from people who are early 60s, in their 50s, sometimes even their 40s. They feel that they've already become too old to get this stuff. Nothing could be further from the truth. Again, it's not about your age. Just talk to the 95-year-old who's teaching technology or the 100-year-old who's blogging regularly. They get technology. They get it at their own pace. They work with their skills. They work with their passions, but they also understand that they still have the capacity to learn and to grow. I'll go so far as to say that technology is one of those things that helps them learn and grow and stay young, stay mentally fit longer than if they simply throw up their hands. It's something that I count on. It's one of the things I'm very grateful for, is having chosen this profession, because one of the truths about this profession is that it's constantly changing. There will always be something to learn. There will always be something to stimulate my thinking, to keep me alert and active as long as I possibly can. I might encounter limitations at any point in my life. Literally any point, these kinds of things can happen. But I'll cope. I'll work with them. I'll continue to deal with whatever life throws me and continue my exploration of technology to keep myself alert and interested and feeling young, at least on the inside. If you're using your age as an excuse to not get into technology, to not try and learn about technology, to use it as an excuse not to deal with technology, stop. Just stop. It's not your age. There may be other things. Maybe your limitations are too overwhelming for you. That's fine. Maybe you're just not interested. Honestly, that's fine too. Personally, I'm interested, but not everybody is. I get that. But please don't continue to promote this false narrative of age somehow being a limiting factor. It's not the age, it's the attitude. For updates, for comments, for related links and more, visit askleo.com/144817. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is AskLeo.com. Thanks for watching.